Now, why this, again, is something that is far above and beyond as what I believe to be anything else or relevant in the market in terms of what's being offered, is that you can create your own widgets. They're wrapped in our security framework. You have the ability to utilize our utilities, which gives you user context and their permissions. It helps with navigation and routing. You can also use it for internationalization purposes, so you can translate all the content within said widgets. There's so many different additional functions that are available just by way of the nature of Widget Builder.
Hey everyone, I'm Todd Nilson and I've been working as a community strategist since 2013. I'm starting a new video series where I'm walking through community platforms with the people who build them. But here's what makes this different. These aren't your typical marketing demos. Community platforms are a major investment. In each of these episodes, you'll get a real walkthrough of a platform with someone who knows it inside and out. But you'll also get my perspective as someone who's been through dozens of platform evaluations and launches. Subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss a single episode. So let's figure out which community platforms are actually worth your time.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you may happen to be. You've tuned into Clocktower Advisors and Talk About Your Community, a show where we bring all sorts of wonderful guests on who talk about their perspectives in building communities online, offline, and in hybrid spaces. I am really excited today to greet the next guests we have for our demo series. Matt Wood and Brendan Parm from HireLogic Vanilla is the platform we'll be talking about today. Matt is a senior sales engineer with HireLogic, and Brendan is an enterprise account executive. Welcome to you both. Glad to have you on the show.
Thanks for having us,
Happy to be here.
So, Matt, maybe I'll start with you. How long have you been involved with community platforms, and how long have you been working with HireLogic?
It's an excellent question. Kind of feels like a lifetime, to be entirely honest, but I would say for the better part of, 15 years or so. I'm on my 8th or so year, coming back to the company for my 3rd time around. I can't seem to get away because I love it so much.
Of course, I love it.
Yeah, exactly. But again, happy to be here. Really have a rooted foundation in community.
Fantastic. And Brendan, what about you?
Yeah, so I've been with the Vanilla platform now coming over just over 9 years. So I actually started as a CSM on the Vanilla platform back in 2016, moved to the sales team from there, and then I was part of the acquisition by HireLogic in 2021. So when I started Vanilla, we were just maybe about 20 or so employees. We were probably about 80, 85 by the time of the acquisition, and that really sets up for some nice success over the last few years as we've grown out this side of the logic. Now, I'm curious, in terms of the background, I think that'd be maybe helpful to a little bit understand that whole story, right? So HireLogic has been around since 2007. If you ask Rob, our CEO and founder, he almost feels like he accidentally invented community. I don't like to tell him that that's not quite true, but he might have in the association space in some regard, right? So that was really HireLogic's roots. We're working with professional associations, creates engagement space. And so obviously I wasn't around for that initial history, but being part of the acquisition in 2021, it was a clear signal to the market that we can be the world's biggest online community platform, but some different tools and some different platforms can really service different markets in some different ways. And that's really what the core of this is about. Some people sometimes look at us as, well, why do you have 2 community platforms? And we really look at it as the fact that actually allows us to cover the most widest breadth of use cases that the market can offer. And so for HireLogic Vanilla, that actually really comes down to being more of a preferred solution for our B2B, B2C world. So working with SaaS companies, tech companies, those kind of commercial products to be their go-to community solution. And that's the way the product has really been developed and built for. There's not to say there's not exceptions on both sides of the house. There's tech and B2B companies on HireLogic Thrive. There's nonprofits and some associations on HireLogic Vanilla. There can be really different flavors, but we really do run the gamut in terms of those diverse use cases.
So just to back up a little bit, for people not familiar with HireLogic, they may not know that you guys have 2 different platforms, entirely different purposes. HireLogic Thrive, and if someone is interested in that particular platform, we'll drop a link up here somewhere that will take you to a demo of the HireLogic Thrive platform. But today, here we're talking about Vanilla, which is, I think, I've always thought about it as sort of a best of breed discussion forum platform, but I know it's more than that, and it's been built into more than that. So we're definitely going to get to that in the course of the conversation. Brendan, just to kind of ask, I know you were starting to get into it a little bit about the customers. Who is an ideal customer profile for the vanilla platform? Because I know, as you said, Higher Logic has served the association space. It's a stalwart in the industry, and the Thrive platform is very geared towards nonprofits and associations. But what about vanilla? Where does that fit in?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I think in our more historically, it's always been very strong in the B2B tech, B2B SaaS, but even B2C. So, I think right now where our strong suit really is working with a little bit more of your mid-market to the enterprise and larger enterprise customers. As an organization, we do power communities for brands like Oracle, Acer, Verizon. So very large enterprises with stringent requirements, both in terms of security, legal requirements, flexibility in terms of the platforms, a really big key concern there. That's not to say we don't work with the smaller orgs. I don't want to say, hey, we don't, but this isn't necessarily an SMB tool. We've really grown into more of a true enterprise solution, and our platform development reflects that.
Yeah. And when I think about that enterprise grade software, that it's got the strong protections for data privacy, security, that it's a robust software, it integrates well with other kinds of systems and platforms, and definitely vanilla seems to be a leader in that category. So I know that this series is about getting into the demo. So why don't we go ahead and dive in? I'm sure we're going to have some more questions as we go. I think Matt's going to be doing the driving here, but I'm going to do a share screen. And what are we looking at here, Matt?
Yeah, absolutely. So per your request, we're going to skip over some of the table stakes stuff. I think that the majority of people who are going to be tuning into this already know what a community is, know the benefits of a community, of course. So we're going to be talking about a few of the things that I think that we excel at. Overall, there's many different ways in which you can represent your site. Usually I would walk through and show you all different types of representations of existing customer sites that are publicly facing. But for the sake of this demo, we're just going to stay on my own. So in my own demo site, anything and everything that you see in front of you can be customized. Now, there are multiple levels of customization, and they really range from the different tools that are provided to you. So if you wanted to, change out the header, change the positioning or the text on certain things, add in elements in the form of widgets or even HTML custom elements, then you absolutely can. Really, a lot of them are out of the box, and there's different parameters that you can use to customize these. So as we kind of scroll down the page, you're going to notice that there's all different types of content, really to break up the overall page layout and to draw users in, get them engaged, want them to participate, start interacting with one another, consuming knowledge and articles for their own edification. There's so many different ways in which you can present this to them. It's really entirely up to the customer. So as we can see, there's a lot that I actually have on my own site. But once we jump into the appearance editor, this is when it gets a little bit interesting. So, of course, you can change everything from your branding from a top-level perspective, going in and adding special tags for SEO purposes. But really where we excel is going to be the way in which we templatize the entire experience. So from an admin perspective, the first place that people are generally going to go when it comes to stylizing these pages is going to be your style guide. So this is going to be the top level kind of styles that you can apply to the site. And it can be anything from, changing brand colors to the way in which you want the body of the page to be positioned to your buttons and inputs. That's all pretty par for the course. Now, there are all optionally is going to be a light and dark mode. So if I wanted to just quickly switch this, so you could actually see different representations of it, then you can. But beneath that, you can change things like the title bar, the banner, or the widgets. Really, it doesn't matter. Now, you can select them from here, or you can simply click into each one of these, and then it's going to change accordingly on the right-hand side. So, again, this is kind of the easiest way in which you can go through and set some of your styles from the top-level perspective.
I really like that. I would say that I've worked in other enterprise community platforms, and some of them have like a staging instance. Other people do things, and this looks like I can do this all live within the production side of the environment.
I think that's an important call out though, Todd. And I didn't want to maybe preamble too hard that we're just for enterprises. We build a platform for multiple personas, and I think that's what Matt's going to get into. You can be a simple community manager and drag and drop elements on the page and pick your colors, or you can be a developer and have a complete developer experience, and we can serve both those audiences well within one environment.
And you're both playing right into my hand, which is excellent. So I'm very happy for that. Kind of moving right along into the next section is going to be the overall layouts of the pages. Now, since we are built off of a templating engine, we make it incredibly simple for someone that might not be proficient in front-end web development to make these changes on the fly. So for instance, if I wanted to change my homepage, I have the ability to simply click into edit. And then again, it's a live kind of representation or preview of such. Now, if I wanted to simply change, the header that I have over here, I can click into it, and then you'll see that there's a range of customization options, and I can change these really just on the fly. And something that's always going to be ubiquitous is at the bottom. So it's conditions. And we understand that there's different levels of access that people should be granted, depending on what your role or your rank is going to be. So one thing that's a major differentiator, not only in the market, but also from the Thrive perspective, is the level of personalization when it does come to roles. So it's so granular that, in fact, it would take you a long time to scroll to the very bottom of that page, depending on how many special permissions you want to enable. So if I wanted to change something, like let's say that this carousel that I have right here should only be exposed to individual users as opposed to, let's say, the kind of broader audience, if this was going to be something that's for, onboarding specifically, I can tailor it to that onboarding role or rank. Now, each one of these widgets that I click into, some of them are going to be out of the box. Some of them are going to be a little bit more customized in the next level of customization options that we do offer, and that's going to be Widget Builder. It's a little bit of teaser content. But again, when you click into each one of them, you're always going to have the option to change these simply by just updating these parameters that you see, and then, of course, the conditions at the very bottom. So we do make it very easy. Drag and drop, define the container, add in the element that you want to, make the changes, and hit save. Now, optionally, we do have the ability for people to go in and kind of update some of these. They're key value pairs, really. And you can actually copy entire themes or templates if you wanted to, simply just by highlighting everything on this page and then dropping it into a net new page. So that's first level. Now, one level up from that is going to be the widget builder, and this is when it gets really interesting. So Brendan kind of played into it. Todd, you kind of played into it. And then this is really why I'm here today. I'm excited to talk about this aspect. So when it comes to creating these widgets, you'll see the prompt at the very top, and I can click into create widget, and then you'll see all these different widgets that we give you right out of the box. These are our standard widgets, and we're trying to create that full parity with what we currently offer today. We're almost there. So not all of them are here, but again, about 85% are included to date. So if I wanted to, I could add in a custom banner. Now, when I click into the banner option, it's going to launch me into this builder right here. Now, this might look a little bit daunting for someone that is not, again, proficient in front-end web development, but this over here is going to be your text editor. This is a combination of React, TypeScript, and then something that's referred to as our utilities that you see at the very top. Now, what's great about this is that, again, you have the ability to work on our existing code. So really the short version of this is that it's an interface for your developers to go through, and they can build these custom interactive widgets that can be deployed across your community. Once you create it, once you go through and create iterations upon that, it is immediately going to be reflected. You can push these changes live. Your admins or the members of your team that are going to be managing the site don't have to go in here and make any changes to the baseline code. So again, this is all the code that you have over here. Here's a live preview of it that you're going to see. And then we also have documentation. We have a fantastic team of technical writers who are going through and constantly updating and maintaining our documentation, making sure that each and every one of the users of our platform, whether it be from kind of an administrative function or a developer function, has the proper documentation to steer them in the right direction to get the most out of our application. Now, all the documentation is going to be specific and contextualized. So I'm updating the banner fragment, and I can see that this is all going to be relative to the banner fragment. And again, you can see how exhaustive it is. There's no stone that's left unturned. Now, this is just one example of them. You'll see that I actually have tons and tons of examples beneath that, but you also have the ability to create a fully custom one. Now, why this, again, is something that is far above and beyond as what I believe to be anything else or relevant in the market in terms of what's being offered, is that you can create your own widgets. They're wrapped in our security framework. You have the ability to utilize our utilities, which gives you user context and their permissions. It helps with navigation and routing. You can also use it for internationalization purposes. So you can translate all the content within said widgets. There's so many different additional functions that are available just by way of the nature of Widget Builder. Now, same concept, documentation is going to be specific to it. And you can see, again, just how exhaustive it is. Now, just a couple examples of ones that I've created. You can see them all down here. That's kind of coalescing up and down the page. I've created them for really every single possible scenario. But here's a perfect example of one that I actually created not too long ago for Brendan. And that's going to be our blogs widget. So really, this widget right here is fetching all the blogs. It's looking for a type of post. It's fetching them, and it allows you to sort and filter based on multiple different tags. So I can go through and I can sort based on the tags as well as the time constraint. And again, this is repurposable. If I wanted to go back and jump into any area of the site, any of these home pages or maybe some of the interior pages, I can reference that. It's as simple as that. So once you create it, you kind of set it and forget it. And if we jump back to the site quickly, you'll actually see if I scroll all the way to the bottom of the page that we have exactly that. So here's another example one. It's just a knowledge base one that I created. So you can click into it. It's going to load all the knowledge base articles. You can sort and filter as you see fit. But here's that blog post one. So they're interactive, real representations of content that exists on the site, but it's that heightened level. So we talked about kind of using the product as is, out of the box, just customizing, dragging, dropping, changing some parameters. Now the next level up is going to be the widget builder. And then the final step.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to observe as you cue up the final step here. I mean, this to me is the mark of an enterprise platform. It's got the complexity and the robustness to be able to, create something that every enterprise has its own special stuff that they want to put into place. And I've never worked with a larger enterprise customer that didn't have some kind of special need. And
Yep.
In the ancient past, when I was doing this stuff with other enterprise community platforms, you had to basically hack the platform to make it do the things you wanted it to do. Like this is very nice. It feels like a very user-friendly layout to be able to do it. I'm not a dev. I'm looking at it. I get what it's about. I wouldn't want to touch that stuff, but I'd be comfortable having my tech team, look at that and work with it.
Mm-hmm. What's nice though, Todd, is you could touch the widget they create and place it wherever you want and also configure it. That's kind of the beauty. We're trying to thread that needle between flexibility that a lot of developer teams and these community teams and enterprises we work with require and marrying that with ease of use.
Really powerful stuff. Matt, sorry, didn't mean to take you off your course there, but I just had to interject there.
Completely fine. I needed a sip of water anyways. So the final part is going to be code deploy, and that's not something that we generally demo, just because code deploy is essentially provisioning your own GitHub repository. So that's when you'll have access to a development environment or development branch, your staging, and then your production. Now, what's great about that is it's enterprise ready, it's enterprise grade. So we're pushing the code up there, and then they have the ability, so the customer has the ability in their development team to go in and make modifications to it. So you can take all these together and really create just something that is absolutely enigmatic. And it is going to be a true vision coming to life or coming to fruition. So they take all of that code, they can make modifications to it, and then they can push it down and provision it to their production site. Additionally, it does allow them to create API endpoints, and they can also create their own tables. So all of these in conjunction with one another really just cover the entire scale of customization. So
it's very powerful. I mean, with over 130 community platforms out there, when I last surveyed the market, I mean, there are merely a handful that serve the enterprise space, and of those, it's a very beefy, muscular platform, that you're introducing here.
I had no idea there were that many, to be entirely honest.
So I mean, many of them are still viable. There's a significant chunk of them. I'd say maybe 30 to 40 of them that I would say are living in a GitHub somewhere that, it's an old PHP forum, something like that. But, I wasn't leaving anybody out. I just wanted to, for my own curiosity, find out how many are we dealing with in the market? There's a lot.
Perfect. All right. Well, moving right along, I know everyone really cares about AI. So why don't we actually switch gears just a little bit and jump into AI? So when it comes to search, if I actually scroll to the very top of this page, whenever you initiate a search, it's always going to be contextualized. Now, I don't have AI search enabled on my site right now, but just to show you what it is going to look like, if I were to, just go into, let's say, a different site. This is our support site right here. I search for how can I export analytics. Now, the way in which the search assistant is working, and most people are pretty common and familiar with this, is going to be the summary, so the AI summary. Now, the difference between the way in which we approach this and some of the other providers that might be in the market is we're using a RAG model. So it's retrieval, augmentation, generation. Now, what that means is we're looking for the sources. So everything is rooted in truth. So on the right-hand side over here, it's going to fetch these sources. So effectively, it does have a database of all of these pieces of content. And when you initiate that search, so your prompt, it's going to attempt to match it to any of those existing sources. So the propensity or probability that it's actually going to churn something out that is fully hallucinated is very low. Now, what's great about this is if I wanted to refine it, I could simply click up here, or I could interact with the bot that we see down here. And it is going to preserve it based on the session. So initially I was searching for localhost, and then I did a couple other things. How can I set up SSO? And then eventually, I was searching for the export analytics. But when you see this prompt right here, what's great about it is I can, again, refine it, or I can actually click into Ask the Community. Now, when you ask the community, what's going to happen is it's going to craft and post a message for you. And it's going to choose what it believes to be the correct category. Now, sometimes it can't find that correct category for you because we don't have a category that's just specific for SSO. But in previous examples, if I was trying to find, how do I export analytics, or if I was trying to find something related to how do I configure ranks versus roles, we know exactly what category to drop that into. Sometimes you will see it pre-populated. But what's great about this is it's taking that little snippet, that little prompt, and it's making it provocative. And what I mean by that is it's expanding upon it. It's actually creating something that is going to draw attention. If I just ask the question, how do I configure SSO? I don't think a lot of people are going to weigh in on that. But instead, it's acknowledging people, it's asking, it's expanding upon it, and it's really effectively using the community for what it's good for. It's keeping people engaged, and it's posting new content, relevant and fresh. So here's a perfect example of it kind of, again, creating that full circle. Now, I will pause here if there are any questions around it before I move into some of the other aspects related to AI.
I'll just make an observation. I saw a similar expression of this in the Higher Logic Thrive platform. Yep. I see it's expressed here as well, in a way that I like and respect, which is that it's citing the sources, it's putting a human in the loop here, it's suggesting content or drafting things for you, but you edit and kind of change things to your liking before you put them into play.
Yeah, absolutely.
The one thing I love about it as well is that it's a search assistant. It's persistent on the page. So as I navigate the community as an end user, I can always just pull that up and, do a little search. And so when we think about communities, especially in B2B tech and things of these nature, really being, these not only, more than engagement, really about enablement, getting you answers, engagement's a part of it, but, having that assistant just right there as you navigate the community and really just frankly providing a better search. It's just a more advanced search than what we've been able to offer in the past.
Yeah. I'll ask an obvious question that a customer might ask about this. So we've got people sharing information on the community platform here. But what are you harvesting my data? How are you how do you handle privacy with regard to stuff that's here in the AI? Are you using it to train your own bot? How does that work?
So everything is fully isolated, and we're not using it to train our model. So there's really no concern when it does come to the way in which we're processing this data. In addition to that, there's certain concepts that exist when it comes to AI and the way in which you're matching these. So we're creating vectors. So it's really a representation of this data. Now, whenever we create a vector, we look up to see if there is a matching vector. If there is, then we're going to return that source for it. And the generative part of this is going to be constructing an answer to your initial prompt. So the too long didn't read is there really shouldn't be any concern around it because of our hosting solution through Microsoft Azure, the way in which we process this data, so the way in which we're collecting, kind of packing it up and then performing that lookup using vectors, and the fact that everything is going to be isolated and not used to train any other models. Now, the current state of the product, it's only going to be indexing community content, so it's not spidering. There's no crawling of external pieces of content, but it is on the roadmap. And it's something that we're actively pursuing for development.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the key term is pre-trained static models. The content in your community does not affect the actual underlying model that is the AI that helps make this run.
What if I'm part of an organization that's maybe a little hesitant to have AI turned on? Do I have control over whether or not I'm deploying these features within my particular community instance?
Yep, you absolutely do. We haven't taken a deep dive into the back end yet, but it's one of the things that's absolutely available. So you can turn them on. They're underneath the labs section, and that's what's going to have some of our newer releases specific to AI. Now, it's important to note that what you're looking at right here is going to be in the beta phase. We haven't rolled it out to the general public yet, but it's on the docket for a short release.
Fantastic. So what else in your experience have customers pointed to that they say that they really like or that really stands out about vanilla?
Yeah, absolutely. So I wanted to touch on a couple of the other AI aspects, and then we'll jump into some of the analytics, because we have some beautiful dashboards and representations of that data, with also the optionality to go through and kind of customize those to your liking. So one of the other aspects of it is going to be the suggested answers. Now, really, this is kind of compounding on the entire AI approach that we do have. So this user right here, Daniel Fisher, went through and he asked what vanilla forms are and how he configures those ranks. And then beneath that, I've already accepted the answer, but you'll see proposed answers. So really what's happening here is it's a bunch of content that's being indexed by a bot. Now that AI bot is providing recommendations as to what it thinks are going to be the correct sources of information to answer that question. Again, depending on whatever the initial question is, and you can actually set the delay for that bot. So I have mine, so it fires in near real time. So it's asynchronous to someone asking that question. And again, it's just keeping users engaged. Now, this is kind of a fallback option. Some people have it so it's going to be set for, like, let's say 2 days after the fact, because people that are asking questions in the community and they're not receiving responses aren't likely to be active participants moving forward. So it's an effort to ensure that every voice is heard, whether it be from an actual human or from one of these AI helper bots. So that's another aspect that's going to be folded into the platform. And then finally, and I'm going to tie this one into the actual analytics and automation rules of everything, is going to be our sentiment analysis. So sentiment analysis is kind of composed of a few different things. So if we actually jump into my site again and we get into the back end, we'll take a look at the sentiment analysis as well as the sentiment keywords. So they're kind of one and of the same. Now, what's great about this is you can go through and you can track specific keywords. I'm not currently tracking any on my site, but once you enable them, and you can enable up to 30 of them, you'll be able to see what that level of sentiment is going to be based on a time scale. And that is really folding into our analytics and our dashboards. You can manually add them as well, and then you can even control or calibrate what these sentiment levels are going to be in between each one. And the reason that you would want to do this is because, let's say, in advance of a launch, you're expecting a little bit of pushback because people are resistant to change. You might want to calibrate this so that the differences between them are in your favor. But once you go through and you start tracking keywords, you have the ability to take a look at some of the sentiment scores. Now, I'm switching into actually our live support site, so I'm not going to dive too deep into it because there is some live customer data here. But within this dashboard, it's going to show you different representations and breakdowns of how people are engaging with your site and what the pulse is of your customers. So we can see, what the post sentiment is going to be, comment sentiment, trending posts. Beneath that, you can see it by categories. So you can hover over each one of these and get different kind of views of it. This is based on a 1-month scale, so this isn't really kind of the best report or best tile for this data. You can always go through and you can change, what the interval and the metric is going to be used behind this. And this is kind of where I'll stop scrolling because, again, you're going to see some actual usernames, but we can see the most positive posts and most negative posts. And the list really goes on and on and on. Now, what's great about the analytics and the way in which we've kind of presented this to you, it's in a logical format. So over here on the left-hand side, you have all your categories. Within these categories, there's corresponding dashboards. There's different tiles that are really slicing and dicing and presenting that information to you in a digestible format. Now, since this is our own support site, and again, we have a team that is maintaining this on a daily basis, you have all these different dashboards. Now, really what these dashboards beneath it are, they're going to be copies, or they're fully created custom versions of these existing dashboards. So if I wanted to create my own, I can simply click into the copy. I can rename it. I'm just going to call it Matt W. And beneath that, I can see all of the different existing tiles or the pieces of data that are being compiled. Now I can click into each one of them. I always make this joke when I'm doing live demos. I'm not a fan of pie charts. So if I wanted to, I could change again the representation of this. Maybe I want to have it so it's going to be in a bar graph. And then beneath that, you have all these limits and filters and group bys. And you can also change what that overall data source is going to be. So there's tons and tons of different data sources that we make available. And of course, we're trying to make it so that users are getting and able to glean information that's going to be relevant and easily digestible to them. There's nothing worse than just looking at kind of a raw table and trying to make sense of it, or exporting it into Excel and using something that's archaic like a pivot table. This is real actionable data that we can present to you, and you can customize it to your liking.
And I'll just add quickly, the fact that you can create as many dashboards virtually as you like means that you can create different dashboards for different audiences, different team members, different personas, and they can access these as well.
Really powerful.
The unique URL too. So you'll notice when I move from like engagement to, let's say, like this custom one that's for ideation, you can actually see that the URL changes. So then you can bookmark these for easy access for later on.
That's great. So if I had a version of this report for an executive leadership team, I could just share that link with them, and it's password protected. I can basically go in there and access it.
So not yet. There isn't the ability to share a link out to someone unless they have access to the back end. Okay. Now, it is one of the things that's on our roadmap, and we're constantly pushing the envelope when it comes to, not only listening to our customers. In fact, 40% of our roadmap actually comes from our support site. The other 60% is dictated by what we believe to be true and where the market is headed. But again, it's one of those things that we are actively working on for just sending out reports.
Even so, I really like the direction that's going, because I was on a webinar this morning, and the conversation was about managing stakeholder expectations, making them feel involved with the results of the community. And here, this is enabling the community team themselves to build dashboards that are directly relevant to each of the departments you might want to talk to.
Perfect. All right. So a couple other things that I wanted to briefly touch on. I know that I want to be cognizant of time, and we're trying to keep it under about 45 minutes or so.
We're good.
It's going to be the overall extensibility of the platform. Now, extensibility can mean a lot of things. We are absolutely an API first company. Now, Brendan doesn't like when I start showing some of the documentation, especially when it comes to like our API, because it can be a little bit, again, daunting, not to use that word twice in one recording, but when it does come to our API, it is nothing short of magnificent. Really, I can't find a better word to describe it. What's great about the API is, again, there's so many different API endpoints that exist. I make this joke all the time too. Whenever I'm on a call, you can see my scroll bar over here on the far right. It would take me a long time if I scrolled at this pace to get to the very bottom of the page. That's how many different API endpoints.
That's a big library. Yeah,
it is a big library. And what's great about it too is you can actually initiate and make these calls directly from this page. So pending that, of course, you can log in, you can see the settings, you can jump into the API. Like, let's say that I wanted to fetch all the discussions. Well, I can try this in real time right now. So a lot of them do have a bunch of either path parameters or query parameters, and really effectively those are going to be filters, so you can choose what kind of data you want to pull out of it. But again, there's a lot, and it is very well documented. So if I initiate and click on send right now, you can actually see what the response is going to be. Now, what's great about this is, again, extensibility. This is kind of the first step in the larger initiative to be able to integrate with multiple different external platforms and partners and applications. Another thing that is kind of inherent and just comes with APIs is going to be webhooks. So if you're interested in creating like a data lake or a data repository, and you want to collect all the pieces of information as to what's happening within the community, you can. That's another option that's available for you. Zapier is a pretty common name. Never been the biggest fan of Zapier, to be entirely honest, but there's so many other providers out there that you can actually leverage in order to kind of facilitate these custom integrations. We'll talk about, what we can bring to the table by way of just migrations as well as our professional services, because assisting with integrations is absolutely one of them. But just know, again, that you can use, webhooks, and you can create and craft your own, as many as you would like. And then also you have the ability to go through and use Zapier. So it's just going to give you some kind of boilerplate ones just out of the box, but you can customize this as you see fit. Now, I'm big on kind of sharing some degree of documentation, but it's not really documentation. It's more of, let's say, light reading. And this is just going to be some of the integrations that we do offer out of the box. You can see that there's tons of them. And again, it's one of those kind of introspective periods where, should we really focus on community, or should we take kind of the other approach that some other players in the market have done, where they've tried to create an amalgamation of all these different products underneath one roof? We focus on community, and it's always going to be community first over here. The extensibility and integrating with these other partners is absolutely something that we care about, but we know that we're good at community. We're going to focus on that in the customer. So again, lots of integrations that are available. I'll share the links so that everyone has it after the call. I will pause here before I jump into kind of the migration process, data portability, and then talking about, our professional services before we kind of wrap it up for the day.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the overview. I think anybody that sees this will see what a powerful platform that's available here. I think going into the conversation, my mind was going with, oh, this is kind of like a Ferrari of community platforms, but it's really more like NASA mission control. There's some really deep granular control that's built into the space, which I've seen some pretty granular setups for enterprise community platforms in other spaces. I won't mention any of the names in particular, but they're very difficult back-end experiences. What you've created here, the ability to sort of preview data queries, the full library, just there visible. Like for me, it means that I, as somebody that's managing the configuration of a community or trying to manage the setup of it, I don't have to come running to professional services every time I need something. I've got a lot of the capabilities there in my hands to work with.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really about empowering the customer and making sure that they take the best approach. And that's what we're here for. It's kind of one of our tenets, if you will. Brendan actually brought up a good point, kind of on a side channel, and it's going to be the automation rules. Now, if you watch the previous demonstrations with Higher Logic Thrive, you've likely seen the automation rules. Now, we have some degree of automation rules as well. And just kind of be aware that there's so many other things that we didn't touch on today. These are kind of some of the heavy hitters, are really, in our opinion, going to be the differentiators. But just know that we do have automation rules, and it's the same concept. So you can create all these different automation rules, and they're based on actions and triggers. So what is going to be that initial trigger? What's going to happen? What is the user doing within the community? Is it going to be updating something relative to their profile, or are they going to be participating in a post? So there's a few different ways in which you can construct these. The perfect example that I kind of always love to jump into is going to be like this power users re-engagement. So we'll click into the edit option for it. And effectively what's happening here is it's going to wait for 3 days. So if something has been posted, 3 days after that, I'm limiting it to a couple different types of posts. So we've got discussions and questions and ideas. I'm going to bump that to the top of the widget. I want to get some eyes on it. And then in addition to that, I want to send out an email. And that email is going to be specific to the moderator team because I know that they're experts. So I'm sending out a re-engagement prompt to moderators, or maybe I want to send it out to power users or subject matter experts. Now, what's great about this is you can further curate what those email templates are going to look like. So I can show you, what this re-engagement prompt is going to look like. So if we jump into our email templates over here and we click into this re-engagement prompt, when we take a look at the preview, it's acknowledging the user. So it is using some degree of what are referred to as mail merge variables. And it's saying there's some new questions, in my toolkit. That's my fictitious site. But they could really use your insight. And then it's linking them out to these individual further curated widgets, because again, you can create all these personalized views of them. In fact, you could send them to a page that really just has unanswered questions. So that's going to be kind of above the fold and right there for them. That's one way in which you can perform this. There's several other automation rules that you can tie in conjunction to some of those extensibility things that I just mentioned. So if I wanted to, pass users or pass posts as escalations into Salesforce or Zendesk or ServiceNow or Freshdesk, I mean, really the list goes on and on and on. There's a lot of different ways in which you can handle this. Just know, again, that these are almost like these virtual assistants that you're probably accustomed to if you've watched the Thrive demo before.
Really,
perfect.
Really great. So just some quick lightning round, check the box kind of questions. You guys have gamification built into the platform?
Yep. Yes, we absolutely do.
Okay. What about reply by email?
We do not have reply by email.
Technically, we do. Technically, we do.
Yeah.
It's in a maintenance mode. It's a feature called Vanilla Pop. That's what happens when you've worked here for 9 years.
Oh. So it's interesting. So like I know the Thrive platform by contrast has that as a regular capability that you could turn on. And it's something that reduces friction, but there's different schools of thought about how important that is to the experience. If you want members to come back into the platform to be active, you don't want to have reply by email. If, however, you want ease of use and low friction for participation, people could just reply by email and have that approach. So it's a design choice, but kind of knowing it's there, maybe sitting in the background and could be implemented by somebody if they wanted it is interesting. Very good, very good. So let's talk a little bit about implementations. If I'm a new customer, what can I get from professional services? Will you help me to migrate from another platform here? Will you help me build some of my initial integrations? What's in scope and out of scope, for that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll take the first stab at it, and then Brendan, feel free to come in over the top if you would like to. So really, when it comes to our migration methodology, it's deserved to preserve that content integrity. So all the user data, all the roles, all your SEO equity, really all of your historical engagement metrics, because you want to be able to prove that switching platforms is not only a better user experience, but it's also going to be a smart move in terms of your return on investment. So when we're going through that entire process, we'll lead the extraction, the transformation, kind of the data loading, all the SEO, as well as the redirect implementation. All of those things are all going to be handled by our team. Now, from a customer perspective, really what we're asking you to do is really just bring a small cross-functional working group to the table. So you're generally going to want to have a community lead. You're going to want to have, an SSO contact or IT contact, someone that is going to be responsible for any SEO implementation. And we just give them system access, kind of confirm what that migration scope is going to look like, participating in UAT to make sure that the data looks normalized, because we do take it in batches. So we're not just going to initially kind of import all that data just at once. Usually the migration process is going to be phased out. So it's usually broken out into like a 4-step phase. And we'll define, who's responsible, who's going to be kind of actively participating in it, what each one of those steps is going to entail. And really, it's going to be milestone based. So we don't want it to be so resource intensive on a daily basis that people get burned out. We want to make it so that it's going to be as minimally kind of operationally disruptive, while also maintaining kind of compliance oversight from our perspective. Like, we want to get everyone on board. We want to make sure that this is going to be a seamless process. And kind of what I said earlier, we are consummate professionals. We've done this for anyone coming over from Salesforce, anyone coming over from Chorus. It's frankly just what we do. We excel at it.
Yeah, I think to add to that, I mean, migration is obviously a big thing for a lot of organizations wanting to retrieve, but it's also the implementation support. So that's part of the services packages we provide, right? So having named implementation advisors, having named solutions engineers that will work with you. We're actually starting to roll out some more advanced implementation packages recently, where we'll take a hands-on approach from a technical point of view. So that means doing your homepage design and overall styling. We will create custom widgets for you with our in-house design resources. So bringing it even a little bit more full circle. And in addition to that, one of the key areas we're also really revamping with a lot of our existing customers, as well as brand new customers, is professional services in more of a managed service point of view. So you'll be able to have a series of points that you can apply towards a whole variety of tasks. And we keep that very open-ended. So that could be maybe you want us to do reporting for you on a monthly basis, or you would like us to moderate, or you'd like us to set up your automation rules or build a custom widget, or it really is quite open-ended. And so those also extend to, in some cases, some type of community strategic workshops. Like, hey, you want to revamp your entire gamification strategy on vanilla and how our platform works? Let's do a serious workshop on that. So it really runs the gamut, and we're trying to make it a lot easier for some folks just to be able to, manage what's on their plate. Because we know for a lot of community teams, they unfortunately run quite lean. And so if we can be some extra helping hands, we'd like to be those hands.
That's important, and I think, and for a lot of even enterprise teams that have the tech department working behind them, they're often under resourced as well. And so just having you guys there as experts that know the platform, know how to work through it, and have access to your customer success people, as well as partners like me that can help through that process of thinking through the strategy and making sure that it's speaking to the business needs. That's a recipe for success that I would see. I did want to ask you a little bit about implementation times. Obviously, enterprises, the more integrations, the more customization, the longer those kinds of implementations can end up lasting. But can you give a sense, just order of magnitude? Average customer implementation takes what, 3 months or so?
Three months is an average, 3 to 4 months. We've done some major companies because we had to in 10 days recently, and
Wow.
that's not fun for everyone, but it was
That's an
doable.
overrated situation. No, I don't love
Yeah,
that.
but that's the type of thing we're capable of doing if we ever had to. But no, 3 to 4 months is your average one. The one thing I just keep trying to hammer home with some folks, and I think it's helpful advice. If you've got a very old, your community's been around, but you're looking to move and upgrade it, it can be difficult to try to bake 6 years of customizations into your standard 3 to 4 months timeline. And a lot of people feel like they have some non-negotiable customizations they've developed. So I always try to, emphasize like, yeah, in a normal circumstance, 3 to 4 months. But if we're going to do all these extra things that, are custom, you might want to make that six to eight. And I know that can be a long period, but we often work with our the teams to make sure it makes sense for them financially and how they kind of offset all those different costs and concurrent platforms.
That's a really smart caveat, and that's good to know for the timeline for implementations. I often think when I work with customers, it can be 1 to 3 months, even putting together the rubric or figuring out like what platforms we want to look at, and then you need to think a little beyond that. So if someone's contract with another platform is coming to an end, they should be thinking about this maybe at least 6 months in advance, so that they can be ready.
At least
a year.
At least a year if you're on thee who shall be not named. At least.
Right. So for some of the common migrations, do you have some automated processes or frameworks that are already set to go?
Yeah, we've been doing our migrations in-house for years. One thing our senior engineer manager who ultimately runs that team as well as our kind of our R&D team, what he always likes to point out is that we don't put a junior developer on these migrations. They're a true full stack developer that is going to be managing it. So we have something quite experienced, and we've done basically every platform you can think of, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't know. I have a Jive on-prem migration I'm doing this month with the customer I'm signing. So I didn't know that still existed. Yeah, I was like, this still exists? How? So to keep that in mind. But so just so you're aware, we do what we create packages. So if you're a Salesforce, you're a Gainsight, you're a Khoros, we've already got a structure in place on how to map your data. So once we get the data, we're able to run it through these packages and convert it to our standardized table style, essentially.
That's great. You've shown us a very powerful platform. There are a lot of options available with it. And an enterprise customer looking at this would expect there's some software licensing fees and implementation fees, involved around this. Without asking you to give me any specifics around this, can you give a sense of order of magnitude, what an implementation might cost and a software licensing, and if you do multi-year agreements, if there's any kind of pricing breaks for nonprofits, that would be, I think, someone who's sort of shopping the market trying to figure out like, where do I go, would be asking those sorts of questions.
So I think you probably heard a lot of us talking about kind of enterprise grade features and things of that nature. So I don't want to scare off the people who are maybe just a little bit earlier in their journey, because I think we've always been the platform that's built to scale with you for the long haul, and so we have different plans to fit different needs, different requirements. We kind of divide our plans based on the features that you have access to. So some of the more advanced features become more available at higher tiers. So just to give you a sense, our plans do start around $30,000 just to be upfront per year, and then there's usually about a $10,000 to $15,000, maybe $20,000 implementation fee, depending on if there's data migration involved. They go all the way up to a couple $100,000 per year to several hundreds of thousands per year on the very high end custom. So I don't want to say that's super common. You'd be, for a lot of organizations, you'd be in that sweet spot of maybe $50,000 to $150,000 per year. I know that's not chump change for some, but just bear that in mind. We also do have some custom options and some custom arrangements where we got to go much, much higher. And that's just really a nature of the value we provide. So it is difficult for me to put an exact number on it, because we do have to often create kind of some custom packages for some of these larger organizations we work with. But I think that entry point should give you some context as well, that, if maybe you are an SMB, a smaller startup, we might not be the option for you. And I don't think that's a bad thing, because when I started at Vanilla as a customer success manager 9 years ago, our plans were $6,000, $7,000 a year. And we were an option for a lot of those groups, and things change. And there's different platforms for those different companies at different stages.
Yeah, of course, and it's one of the reasons why I think a series like this is useful, as someone is understanding their options and where they can go. Frankly, if you're a growing business, you want a platform that can grow with you as you are building upon it. That pricing is also affected by things like what number of active users in the platform is that.
So we're a little avant-garde here. We're actually moving to a model where we're limiting caps on users and even APIs and page views. I mean, I think the nature of engagements is changing. So when we slot you into different plans, it's going to be things like number of different automation rules you have access to, number of certain features that become available. Like there's like the code deploy features, the widget, certain versions of that widget builder feature. Those are only available at the higher tiers, and so we're trying to equate the value to the types of functionality you get, while not limiting your usage and gating you into certain plans that way.
Really interesting. I appreciate the answer on that. And it's good to hear it moving that direction, because it's more than just the number of users in there. That increasingly these are platforms that interact with other platforms and a variety of other AI-based innovations that are happening right now. Thanks for that. So last question. This has to do with sort of limiting risk, for organizations. As we've seen over the past year, a big community platform gets sold to another group, and creates a lot of chaos and uncertainty in the marketplace. What is Higher Logic's position in the market? You guys have some private equity backing. How does Higher Logic look at its own future here?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, what I can say is that Higher Logic has been a profitable company for quite some time. We've really always owned our success. There was an investment by JMI Equity in 2019, I believe, and so we are backed by a private equity growth cap company. But I what I can say to folks who might say, I think private equity can be a bit of a boogeyman for some. We bought a company called Vanilla, which we're talking about here today, and we've grown that product. We've continued to innovate on it. I'm still here. Many of us are still here, right? So, a lot of folks were willing to stay the course, and it's proving to be quite, paying dividends, I would say. And so we can't ever share our exact financials, but we are a steady growth company that owns success. And being profitable, we probably do quite a bit better than a lot of the companies you hear about in the news all the time.
Yeah. So some companies that are the darling of media are nowhere near profitable with what
no, not remotely. So
I appreciate that. I know we've gone a bit over, but I think this has been highly valuable information. I appreciate both of you taking the time to walk through. And I realize we've just sort of skipped along the surface of a lot of features that are there. Matt, it's probably making you cry a little bit that you can't show us a little bit more around it, but appreciate what you have been able to give us a little bit of a teaser for. If someone is interested in hearing or seeing a little bit more about the platform, I'm just going to go ahead and drop a QR code here over my face. And you could, if you want to scan that with your phone, and we'll have a link down in the doobly-doo as well. We'll make sure that you get in touch with Brendan and Matt and anyone else that can give an overview of the platform for your particular needs and what you have. But in the meantime, I hope that you've enjoyed the series so far. If you have questions that we didn't get to in the course of this, please add them in the comments. Would love to hear from you and be able to know what else to ask as I do more of these. And if you have other platforms that you'd like us to take a look at as well, please give us a shout. I love doing these demos because I get to learn something new every time. Matt, Brendan, thank you both for being so generous with your time today.
Thanks for the opportunity, Todd. Great to meet you.
Of course, our pleasure.
Likewise. And in the meantime, tune in for the next episode. And until then, keep building great communities. We'll see you later, everybody.